These are the 5 men who deleted their social media accounts before Nolan Wells' body was even found. Just thought I'd put that out there.
Hi guys, my name is Kelvin, and you're welcome back to the channel. There are tragedies, and then there are tragedies that leave behind more questions than answers. This is one of those stories. A young man goes out to celebrate the 4th of July with people he considered friends. By the end of the weekend, he's gone. Days later, his body is recovered from the water, and instead of the story becoming clearer, almost every new detail seems to create another mystery. Now, before we begin, it's important to remember that this is still an active investigation. Nobody has been charged with a crime in connection with Nolan Xavier Wells' death, and many of the claims circulating online remain unverified. The purpose of this video is to discuss the publicly reported timeline, the family's concerns, and why so many people believe more answers are needed. Because when you step back and look at everything together, it's difficult to ignore just how many unanswered questions remain. According to public reports, Nolan spent the holiday weekend on a boat trip with friends. At some point during the outing, he disappeared. Later, his body was found in the water. But what has captured so much public attention isn't only the tragedy itself. It's everything that reportedly happened afterward. The family has questioned conflicting accounts about Nolan's last known movements. There have been reports that different people gave different explanations about whether he planned to return to the boat or stay behind. Those differences have fueled public speculation, even though they don't by themselves establish wrongdoing. Then there are the reports that some digital information, including messages or social media content, was deleted or became unavailable around the same time. While there could be innocent explanations for that, it's understandable why people following the case have raised eyebrows. When someone disappears under mysterious circumstances, every deleted message, every conflicting statement, and every missing detail naturally attracts attention. The Wells family has continued asking for transparency, saying they simply want to understand what happened during their son's final hours. And honestly, that's a request most people can relate to. If your loved one went out with friends and never came home, you'd probably want every question answered too. So, today we're breaking down why this case has drawn so much public attention, what questions remain unanswered, and why so many people believe investigators need to leave no stone unturned. Let's get into it.
I hear one of Nolan's real friends speaking about what he believes happened. Listen to this.
I know that friend group that he was with is known for, I don't know if I can say this substance, but they're known for doing a certain substance. And, you know, some of us who have spoke to Nolan prior to the island date, we know that they were known for doing that substance. Another thing that we believe is, what if they peer pressured him into doing something, and again, with the mixture of alcohol and...
This is allegedly, y'all. This is allegedly. And Jesus just giving us his synopsis of what he feels. So allegedly, Jesus, you got to remember when you're getting on these panels, you got to say allegedly, because somebody will try to wrap you up.
Allegedly, coming from his friend group that knows him very well. I'm talking about teammates that played with him, went to school with him, and folks that see him every weekend. Allegedly, we believe that maybe something just didn't go the way they wanted it to. Maybe they were trying to have a little bit too much fun, and it was just a mistake that they covered up. But I know for a fact that friend group that they were with is known for a certain substance. So it does not surprise me whatsoever. And I'm almost certainly confident, allegedly, that there was that substance on that boat. I know we won't know till the body gets tested and all that, but, you know, it's what makes sense to me. I don't believe he tried to swim back to the island or anything like that. There's just a lot of things that doesn't make sense. Why did they leave him in the first place? Why didn't they make sure he had a ride home? If that was me and my friend group that I typically hang out with, I mean, Nolan, yes, was in that, but if it was me and my 4 close friends, I'm not leaving that island until I leave with my friend.
Exactly. Because why the fuck y'all didn't bring him back with y'all? If he went out there with y'all, he should have fucking came back with y'all. And from the sounds of it, it sounds like Nolan has 2 separate friend groups, his black friend group and his white friend group. And it sounds like the 2 friend groups didn't really fuck with each other, but Nolan fucked with both of those friend groups. He said they known to be on that shit, and they probably tried to get Nolan to try that shit. And either 1, he wasn't going for it, and that's why they got to fighting, or 2, he actually tried it and it went bad, and they trying to cover some shit up. But either way, the family is going to get to the bottom of this shit. They're going to do an autopsy, and they're going to find out if there's any substances in his system. They're going to find out if there was any blunt force trauma and exactly what the cause of death was. So regardless of if these motherfuckers is telling the truth or not, the truth is going to come out.
Guess who was paying for Nolan Wells' independent autopsy? Colin Kaepernick. You guys, this is a big deal. Colin Kaepernick is paying for his independent autopsy. That says a lot. And on top of that, his family speaks out, and I know it's a difficult situation for them considering their circumstances, but it kind of gives us insight on what's going on as far as the investigation or the lack thereof. But let me tell you one thing. His mama was not giving his phone, baby. She had to go over there and retrieve her son's phone, okay? And how she knew where his phone was at, because it was pinging off of Life 360 Snapchat location. So she sent one of her good friends over to the location to get her son's phone, because it's like, okay, he's not answering his phone. I haven't got any updates on his whereabouts, so what's really going on? So they got his phone. She went through his phone and realized there was some stuff missing in that in his phone. And she said out her own mouth, she said, it's not like my son is not you. That's not typical of him. He usually posts things when he go out with his friends. You know, he's always on his phone. So what's the deal? You feel me? But yeah, y'all, it's getting real deep. Then I forgot to mention that the young girl that he supposedly had went off with was questioned. She said that Nolan stated, I'm going back on the boat with the guys. They go question the guys. They say, oh no. He said he was staying with her. So there's some discrepancies. It's just not adding up. But we want answers. We want to know, because it's a mystery at this point. And like, you don't just turn up dead. I mean, I get things happen, but we're gonna figure it out.
Wait, major update on Nolan. So you're telling me the news and police lied that Nolan friends did not give back his phone to the mom. The mom had to track the phone down and go to the friend house and make them give the phone back. Both his Snapchats have been wiped of everything that happened that day in conversation. Then they lied about not knowing where Nolan car keys was, to the where they homegirl said, Cap, the keys is on top of the Xbox. She seen him put it there, and his homeboys had to go get it. The dad took a boat to the island on July 5th to try to find his body. They could not find it. He went missing July 4th. But he magically appeared July 6th? There were people on the island and all. No one seen a body float. But on July 6th, when no one was there, that's when the body appeared? Yo, do you think we stupid? Yo, I ain't gonna lie. I don't know what Mississippi Sheriff Department got going on, but at this point, a higher power needs to investigate this. Bring the FBI or private investigators, because clearly the Sheriff Department got some other means.
After watching the press conference that Nolan Wells' parents did alongside Ben Crump and Reverend Al Sharpton, there are even more important key details that have come out that we need to be talking about. Let's start with the fact that the parents went to the exact location where the body was found the day before the body was found, and there was no body there. Yes, you heard me correctly. So Nolan Wells' father says in the press conference that he didn't have access to a boat to go and look for his son that night. So early that morning, 5 o'clock in the morning the next day, one of his coaches called Nolan Wells' father and said that he would take them out on a boat. They went out to the island looking for Nolan. They looked all over the island and could not find him. Now, it's also important to note that there were people that had stayed overnight on the island. So if Nolan was actually stuck on the island, there were people there that he could have asked for help. There were also 2 boats that were docked. So at the very least, he would have had shelter until he was able to find help. Now, they went out to Horn Island on the 5th looking for him. On the 6th, they got a call saying that his body washed up to the shore and they found it, but his parents had just been there the day before. Now, what's also important to note is that when Nolan's parents went to the friend's house where his car was parked, the friend was giving them a hard time about giving them the keys to Nolan's car. Nolan's father asked the friend to go in his room and look for Nolan's keys so that he could get into the car. The friend, which by the way is one of the friends who was on the boat, went in the room for however long, said he couldn't find the keys, came back, told the father he couldn't find them, and the father heard him on a phone call with some young lady, and the young lady said the keys were on top of the Xbox. Mind you, he just said that he went and looked all over his room for the keys and couldn't find them. Then he gave the father the keys. Now, after the father was given the keys, the police were already on their way, and the family closed the door and refused to have any further interaction with Nolan's family or the police. Why? Another important detail is that the friends and one of the friends' mothers, who's a judge, reported that they left that island somewhere between 3 and 4:30, which is also very inconsistent. Nolan's mother did not get a phone call about Nolan not returning back to land until 11:07 p.m. Now, mind you, the young lady who they keep saying Nolan was with said that she saw him getting on a boat with his friends at 3 p.m. And his friends then left with his phone while he was still on an island and didn't think to reach out to his parents till 11:07 at night to let them know that their son wasn't there. Oh, and let's not forget that they did not tell her that they had the phone. She had to track it with her friend and have her friend go and get it, and they also gave her friend a hard time about getting the phone. The math ain't math. So according to reports, the young woman who was last seen with Xavier Nolan Wells is Katie McCormick. Now, Katie McCormick has since started to cooperate with the police and has lawyered up. But something is not making sense, and the math is not mathing yet again. Reports are saying that according to Katie McCormick's family, she was with Nolan that day, but she left him before his disappearance, and she assumed, and it was to her knowledge, that he had made it back safely with his friends. Now, no one has confirmed if it was Nolan and his friends, but a video has been circulating online of a huge argument happening on the beach the same day that Nolan went missing, which seems strange. Here's the video. Now, there are also reports that his friends are saying that they thought that he caught a ride with someone else. But what's also strange about that is that his phone was found and it was not on his person. So no one thought to check to see if they homeboy got home safely? The math is just not mathing. Oh, and let me be clear that 2 of his friends have already lawyered up.
What are the consequences of deleting text messages, social media posts, social media accounts, or privatizing social media accounts, deleting Snapchats, photos, video off a person's phone when there's an ongoing investigation that might even lead to a criminal proceeding? As I'm sure you've all seen, a young Black American child, Nolan Wells, was discovered dead on Monday after he disappeared on a boat trip with his friends. Now, before I get into the legal stuff, I think we can all agree that no matter what your race, if your child fails to come home from a boat trip with his friends and is later discovered dead, those friends better have a full, satisfactory explanation. I think it's also fair to say that if your child is the only Black American among a group of otherwise white children, then the situation looks a little bit more sinister and the questions become more urgent. The friends have not proffered a satisfactory explanation. Social media accounts have either been deleted or privatized. More disturbing still is the fact that while they did not bring him home, they brought Nolan Wells's phone home. Absent from that phone was the type of photos, videos, Snapchats, etc. that one would come to expect from an 18-year-old boy. Individuals to have last had custody of that phone wasn't Nolan Wells, but the very people who have failed to provide a satisfactory explanation of his disappearance and death. His family has started to raise questions about whether or not some of this evidence may have been deleted. So here are some law things that everyone should know about spoliation of and tampering with evidence. It is a federal crime punishable by up to 20 years in jail for anyone, and you do not need to work for the government, you do not need to be a lawyer, you do not need to be a police officer for anyone to tamper with evidence that would be used in a criminal proceeding. Specifically under 18 U.S.C. Section 1512C, it is a crime punishable by up to 20 years in jail to alter, destroy, mutilate, or conceal a record, document, or other object, or an attempt to do so with the intent to impair the object's integrity or availability for use in an official proceeding. So that's really important to note. You do not need to actually succeed in deleting, concealing, or destroying evidence. An attempt to do so can lead to the same punishment, 20 years in jail. A person's social media account, a social media post, even a DM or a comment, all of those things would fall under Section 1512. Not only that, if you are a defendant in, say, a murder trial or a conspiracy for a murder trial, the fact that you destroyed evidence will lead to an inference by the jury of your guilt. The judge can literally instruct the jury that the fact that you destroyed evidence is itself evidence of consciousness of guilt. And finally, to the extent the family decides to file a wrongful death lawsuit against you because you were in some way involved with the death, you can have your defenses struck and a judgment rendered against you. Even if you privatize or delete things off of social media, the social media platforms likely have preserved all of that. All it takes is a subpoena to get access to all of it. Moreover, lawyers often hire forensic experts. I used to have one on speed dial in order to recover whatever it is you're trying to hide.
One thing that immediately stands out is how quickly the story became more complicated. At first glance, it sounds like a heartbreaking accident. But then the timeline starts getting examined. Who saw Nolan last? When exactly was he separated from the group? Who contacted authorities? Who searched for him? What happened to his phone? Why do some reported accounts differ? These are all reasonable questions in any missing person investigation, and they're part of why the public has been following this case so closely. The family's concerns have also become a major part of the story. They've publicly said they believe more investigation is needed and have sought independent legal and forensic assistance. That doesn't prove a crime occurred, but it does show they aren't satisfied that every question has been answered. Another issue that has generated discussion online involves reports that some digital content may have been deleted after Nolan disappeared. It's impossible to know the reason without evidence. People delete social media for many reasons, especially during intense public scrutiny. At the same time, when a case is already surrounded by uncertainty, actions like that can understandably increase public suspicion. The reported inconsistencies about Nolan's final movements have had a similar effect. If different witnesses remember events differently, investigators have to sort out those differences carefully. Sometimes conflicting memories happen naturally during stressful situations. Other times, inconsistencies may warrant closer examination. That's exactly why investigators collect statements, compare timelines, and examine physical and digital evidence. Another topic discussed publicly has been the possibility that drugs or alcohol may have played a role. Those claims remain unproven, and until toxicology and other evidence are fully evaluated, they should be treated as speculation rather than fact. The investigation, not social media, will ultimately determine what the evidence supports. This case has also sparked broader conversations about responsibility among friends. Even if no crime occurred, many people have asked difficult questions. What responsibility do friends have when someone goes missing? Could more have been done to find him sooner? Were emergency services contacted as quickly as they should have been? Those are questions that deserve careful examination, not assumptions. One thing is certain, Nolan's family deserves clear answers. Whether the final conclusion points to an accident, negligence, or something else entirely, confidence in that conclusion depends on a thorough, transparent investigation supported by evidence. Cases like this remind us why preserving evidence, collecting witness statements promptly, and allowing independent forensic review can be so important. They help separate rumor from fact and give families the best chance of learning the truth. Until investigators complete that work, it's important to avoid turning speculation into certainty. At the same time, it's also reasonable for the public to ask questions and expect accountability from everyone involved in the investigation. Justice isn't only about arrests, it's also about discovering the truth. Whatever that truth ultimately turns out to be. This case continues to generate intense public interest because so many questions remain unanswered. The most important thing now is allowing investigators to follow the evidence wherever it leads while respecting Nolan's family and avoiding conclusions that haven't been supported by facts. If new verified information becomes available, it may change how people understand what happened that weekend. I'd like to hear your thoughts in the comments. What questions do you think investigators should focus on? Which parts of the timeline do you believe need further clarification? Please keep the discussion respectful. Behind every headline is a family grieving the loss of someone they loved. If you found this breakdown informative, don't forget to like the video, subscribe for more in-depth commentary on developing stories, and turn on notifications so you don't miss future updates. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.